Hello, I'm WTOL11 Chief Meteorologist Chris Vickers. We continue to prepare you for what you need to know about the total solar eclipse on April 8th, 2024. In the next few moments, I will take you through the top 3 things to know about the upcoming total solar eclipse and an idea of what that total solar eclipse may look like. It is going to be our goal to inform, educate, and prepare you for that total solar eclipse. Now, we've already taken a deep look into answering the question of what is a total solar eclipse? You can see more on WTOL.com, our WTOL11 YouTube page, and on WTOL11+. But let's take one more look at exactly what it will look like. A total solar eclipse happens when the moon passes in between the sun and the earth. Now, at that point, it is completely blocking the face of the sun. The umbra is where the shadow is complete, a total eclipse of the sun. Now, the width of that shadow on the face of the earth is very, very narrow, only about 110 miles wide as it passes directly over northern Ohio. The outer shadow or circle is called the penumbra. That shows the extent of the partial eclipse. We'll have more on WTOL11.com, WTOL11+, and on our YouTube page about what a total solar eclipse is. Now let's get into the 3 things that you need to know as you get prepared for the upcoming total solar eclipse. The path of totality, it is everything when it comes to a solar eclipse. It is where the moon shadow, as we described, the umbra, is complete. The sun at this point is 100% eclipsed. This last happened in Ohio in 1806. The next total solar eclipse in Ohio is going to be in the year 2099. It is safe to say that this may be a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for you to be within the path of totality and view the total solar eclipse. Next up, with the path of totality, that path of totality is very narrow across the face of the earth. It is just over 110 miles across as it makes its way through northern Ohio. The time in totality, while it will vary significantly from location to location, is on average just less than 3 minutes. Now, our capital here in Northwest Ohio of the longest time in totality is going to be Forest, Ohio at 3 minutes and 56 seconds. We have a detailed breakdown on WTOL11.com, our YouTube page, and on WTOL11+, detailing many cities here in Northwest Ohio and exactly how long the totality is and when that max eclipse will begin. Totality, or 100% eclipse, means everything. It is the difference between seeing the sun's corona and missing out entirely on what a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. The sky at this time during totality will darken. It'll almost appear like early dawn or late dusk. The stars and planets may actually be visible for a certain time. Unusual things may happen. Streetlights may come on, headlights may come on in the darkness, and even perhaps unusual things like animals acting differently. We'll have more with meteorologist John Birchfield on how pets and wildlife may react to the unusual nature of a total solar eclipse. Number 2, it is going to be the spectacle of the decade, a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. The reason why, that lure of totality will bring millions of visitors to the path of totality. That path of totality will make its way across the United States on the afternoon of April 8th, 2024. Now, major impacts could be expected to our schools, many of which have already scheduled that day off of school. Businesses, travel, and leisure, perhaps even days before, during, and days after the total solar eclipse. Be prepared that week for major disruptions and it to be the spectacle of the decade. The number 1 thing that you will be able to see during the total solar eclipse that you need to be prepared for, a view of the sun's corona. And again, this could be a once-in-a-lifetime to view the solar corona. Now, what is the corona? It is the outermost part of the sun's atmosphere. Typically, this can never be seen without very specialized instrumentation. And when we see a total solar eclipse, it is an opportunity for us, with our very eyes, to remove our solar glasses only during totality and actually have an opportunity to peer up and view the sun's corona. Now, it is mainly composed of plasma, which is very hot ionized gases. The view of the sun's corona is exceptionally rare. It can only be seen for a few short minutes during the path of totality. For many areas across northern Ohio, that may only range from about 2.5 minutes to 3 minutes, and some areas up to about 3.5 or close to 4 minutes. It is millions of times less dense, the corona itself, and hundreds of times hotter than the sun itself. So the solar corona is a very, very light mixture of plasma and light gases that is hundreds of times hotter than the surface of the sun itself. So let's break down what that may actually look like. During totality, the moon at this point, again, is completely blocking the face of the sun. We call this 100% eclipsed. We are not able to see any of the direct solar rays, but from around there, we have a good view of the sun's corona. That sun's corona will glow around the disk of the moon. It is 10 million times less dense than the sun itself. And at this time, it will be an opportunity for our very eyes to be able to see the coronal loops, streamers, and plumes that may emanate from the sun and the solar magnetic field. As I mentioned, it is an extremely hot outer portion of the sun's atmosphere. Scientists speculate on reasons why the corona is so hot, and that does beg the question, why is the corona so hot? Many experts suspect that eruptions from the sun called heat bombs could possibly explain why the outer atmosphere of the sun itself is hotter than the actual surface of the sun. Another possible explanation is something called solar tornadoes. Could you imagine that? Those are giant vertical spirals of plasma interacting with the sun's magnetic field. Something that would be incredible to see with our very own eyes. It can be only seen during the time of totality, your opportunity to view the sun's corona. Our coverage of the total solar eclipse on April 8th, 2024 will continue. We hope to keep you updated, educated, and informed. Stay with us at the WTOL 11 weather team, and please be sure to check out all we have available for you on WTOL.com, WTOL 11 Plus, and on our YouTube page.
Witnesses of past eclipses across the globe have described the event as awe-inspiring and life-changing. It's an event that happens perhaps once every several hundred years in any one location, and for our area, the next solar eclipse won't be for nearly 100 more years. The shadow created by the moon onto the Earth's surface is roughly only about 70 miles wide. Being within this 70-mile path, also known as totality, makes a profound difference in your experience. While the sky maybe doesn't turn as dark as midnight, the sun is completely blocked. It's been described as a hole punched in the daytime sky with sunlight encircling the moon. Very cool sight for us to see there. And what we're talking about for this eclipse is taking us further than what we saw just a couple of years ago with the big 2017 eclipse. Do you remember that one? The longest time that we're under totality from Oregon all the way to South Carolina was 2 minutes and 30 seconds. This eclipse is going to be even more impressive, not only because we're in the path of it, but because look at that timing for it. 4 minutes and 30 seconds will be the maximum time that you might be able to see it. Well, that's all the way down towards the Texas border into Mexico. We'll dive into our own timing here a little bit more in Northwest Ohio. Again, the path of totality, it's all about where you live. If you're up into southeastern Michigan and extreme Northwest Ohio, there's parts of Fulton, Defiance, and Williams counties who unfortunately will miss out on this. The closer to the center of the path you get, the longer you will experience this event. Here in Toledo, we are right on the edge of this, which is going to lead to lower amounts of time to be under totality. The closer you are to this blue line, the longer that you'll be at close to 4 minutes. Let's look at some of the times here and look at the difference it makes the slower or the further south that you go. Toledo, just under 2 minutes in totality. That's where the sky will be completely blackened out. You travel just a little bit down the road. How about Bowling Green? Close to 3 minutes. And how about our cities that are going to be under totality for the longest? Upper Sandusky will be right up there along with Norwalk and Tiffin. Look at that, close to 4 minutes of totality. That is one of the longest experiences of a total eclipse that you could ever hope for. Again, in most years, like the one in 2017, the most we ever saw was 2 minutes and 30 seconds, and that was all the way on the other side of the country. So watch as this zooms from southwest to northeast, and it's going to do so at a speed of about 260 miles an hour. Check this out. From start to finish, from the western part of Ohio all the way into the northeastern part of Ohio, from start to finish in the entire state, it's only going to take 7 minutes and 26 seconds for this amazing lunar event to occur across the state of Ohio. Let's talk about some more places that are going to see the eclipse, because we're obviously not the only ones in northern Ohio. Indianapolis would be another city. How about Dallas and places that are going to see the longest totality? That would be south of the border on the western coast of Mexico, where they may experience this for the better part of 4.5 minutes. And this all wraps up off the east coast of the United States. This is certainly one event that you want to make sure you're not close to totality, but rather you are right inside of it to make sure you get to experience one of these life-changing events. Reporting, I'm meteorologist Ryan Weekman.
Even though the total solar eclipse is over 1 year away, the WTOL 11 weather team is here to prepare you for some of the impacts the eclipse is going to have on our local community. A lot of those impacts are going to be financial in nature. Northwest Ohio is going to be a hotbed for tourism, with folks flocking in from across the country and even all around the world coming right here to our home to visit to see the total solar eclipse. So today we're going to break down just how many folks may be visiting and some of the effects it may have for local businesses and for our local economy in general. And we're going to look back to the 2017 eclipse to see some of the impacts that local small towns had due to the eclipse and some of the effects that we may experience here in 2024 due to this amazing total solar eclipse. So today we're going to break down the financial impact. Let's get into the data and look at some past examples to predict what you can expect about a year from now come next April. Even though a lot of visitors are going to come to the big cities in Ohio, including Cleveland, Columbus, Mansfield, and Toledo, it is really the small towns that are going to benefit the most. The reason for that is a lot of these small towns in Northwest Ohio, they just aren't hotspot tourist destinations in general. That being said, that is going to change this year. In 2024, a lot of those small towns in our region are going to be popular tourist destinations for folks who want to get the best view of the eclipse. It's not always the big cities that have the most minutes of totality. Sometimes small towns, and we're going to talk about a few of those, including Forest, Ohio. Some of those towns will happen to have the best view for the longest duration of this magnificent total solar eclipse. There are going to be millions of cross-country tourists, some of which even coming from other countries, to see this total solar eclipse, which is really a once-in-a-lifetime spectacle for many individuals. That revenue is going to be tremendously beneficial for the small businesses in our area and for the local economy. There are some tourists who can spend thousands of dollars and spend a lot of time saving up money to make this an incredible and memorable trip. Here's some examples of local businesses that will benefit. Local hotels, well, the sky-high hotel rates are going to be one of the side effects. So if you are planning on traveling for the total solar eclipse, even if you live in Northwest Ohio and you're just a space nut or a fanatic and you want to travel a little bit to get a better view, keep in mind, hotel rates are going to be a lot more expensive than normal. Area restaurants are really going to see a boom in business as well, and they are going to see visitors like the which they have never seen before. Also, local parks, last but not least, our beautiful outdoor recreational areas are going to see an influx of visitors for viewing that eclipse. And keep in mind that in April of 2024, a lot of those outdoor public places may be a little bit jam-packed simply due to the sheer number of visitors. Some of those small towns that will benefit the most from tourism include Forest, Ohio, Bloomville, Ohio, as well as some other areas south of Toledo primarily. Locations like Seneca County are going to get the best view of this total solar eclipse. Forest has a population just a hair over 1,000, and Bloomville a population of 867 based on the latest census data. It's kind of crazy to think about, but the number of tourists coming to these towns is probably going to exceed the number of actual residents. So if you were to visit Forest or Bloomville in April of 2024, 2024, you would see more out-of-town folks than actual residents who are from those towns. Tourists are going to come by the thousands, and history has shown us that even these small towns get big-time tourism and visitors during the total solar eclipse. Let's give a few examples. Hopkinsville, Kentucky. Now, to be fair, Hopkinsville does have a population, around 30,000, so it is a little bit bigger, but really Hopkinsville isn't much bigger than some of the Toledo suburbs like Perrysburg, Sylvania, or Maumee. The city invested over $500,000 into renovations, and they planned 10 years in advance. Get this, 10 years of preparation went into the eclipse. They really wanted to spruce up the town and make it a really neat place to visit, to really enrich that experience, not just for seeing the totality of the eclipse, but also for enjoying the local economy. Now, this is the number that is the most staggering to me, and you may find this interesting as well. Little Hopkinsville, or as they marketed it, Eclipseville, that's a nice way of putting it, they saw visitors from 19 countries and 46 states. That means almost every single state in the United States was represented in one small town in Kentucky. Now, will these small Ohio towns see visitors of the likes of this? There is a chance. Even though our towns aren't quite as big as 30,000, there is the chance that we get visitors from a lot of states and even a lot of nations internationally. Here's a few other examples. The last time we saw a total solar eclipse in the United States was in 2017. Now, Wyoming might not strike you as a popular tourist destination. Sure, there's a lot of winter recreation to be had there and a lot of beautiful sights to see, but the eclipse brought in massive amounts of tourists and revenue. In simple travel expenses, the state of Wyoming saw $63.5 million in eclipse travel-related expenses. That is a lot of money getting funneled into that local economy. Tourism was predominantly from out of state. Now, that's a noteworthy number because if 75% of tourists in Wyoming were from outside the state, there's a good chance that most people coming to Ohio are also going to be from out of state. Sure, we're going to have a lot of people driving in from Michigan, from Indiana, from Kentucky. However, there is the chance that some come from far away, even from the west or the east coast. Last but not least, Wyoming saw $3.8 million in local tax revenue, and that's going to be another one of the nice benefits for our local economy is simply the amount of income tax as well as the amount of tax on things that are purchased and the amount of tax on things like just going out to dinner or hotel rooms as well. Casper, Wyoming is one town that saw some incredible impacts from the last total solar eclipse, namely that came in the form of hotel rates. Typically, if you want to stay in Casper, you can get a hotel for as cheap as $65 a night, even $195. That'll get you a pretty nice hotel in Casper. Now, during the total solar eclipse, those numbers just went through the roof. Can you imagine this? $900 to $1,300 per night? That is what hotel rooms cost during the last total solar eclipse, and it has to do with basic economics. The demand was incredibly high, and the supply was very low. Now, there's only a finite number of hotels and hotel rooms, especially in smaller towns. Even though Casper's a little bit of a bigger city, there was only so many hotel rooms to go around. And when you have a lot of folks vying for a small number of an item or a commodity, the price is going to go up. And that's what we saw. Simple economics right there at work. Now, 50% of eclipse tourism is typically from out of state, sometimes up to 75% as we saw in Wyoming. So generally, that's what you can expect in 2024. At least half of our visitors to Ohio, if not 3/4, are going to come from outside the state to see that magnificent spectacle of the total solar eclipse. Here's another example of another West Coast town. A lot of those West Coast and upper mountains states saw the brunt of the 2017 eclipse. In Madras, Oregon, they saw $70 to $200 per night room rates. That is normal, but during the eclipse, those rates were sky high. $600 to $1,000 per night is how much it would run you to get a room at a hotel just to see that total solar eclipse. But for a lot of fanatics and folks who view this as a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, it is worth it. Last but not least, since all the hotels were filled up, what happened is the state of Oregon auctioned off a number of campsites for folks with tents or RVs or who wanted to spend the night outside and perhaps have a primetime viewing location. Now, this number is absolutely staggering, and to most of us, the thought of spending $60,000, that's a lifetime of savings, but that is what some Oregon campsites auctioned off as. looking at that incredible economic impact of the total solar eclipse. Last but not least, during 2017, in addition to some of those west states, some eastern states also saw the eclipse, including South Carolina. They had 1.6 million visitors, and a lot of those came from out of state. Remember, we talked about the percentage of out-of-state visitors. They saw 800,000 of the 1.6 million from out of state, and that is exactly 1 in 2, or 50%, coming from out of state. The economy really reaped in a lot of benefits, with almost $250 million, $269 million, pumped into the state economy. Ohio is going to see a lot of financial benefits for a number of reasons. Obviously, Northwest Ohio is in a prime viewing location, but a lot of the big metro areas and the small towns alike are in prime viewing. Much of the Buckeye State, from Cleveland to Columbus through Toledo, are all going to experience totality, and that means we are going to have incredible views. Now, the 2017 eclipse took a very different path. Here's the line of the 2017 total solar eclipse. And remember, we talked about some of those West Coast states, those Oregon campsites. Oregon was in totality, Wyoming, and some of those upper mountain states. It also ran down towards Kentucky, as we mentioned, Hopkinsville or Eclipseville, and some of those East Coast towns and cities also saw it, like South Carolina. 2024 is going to actually run perpendicular to the direction of 2017, and that's going to provide new tourism opportunities, especially for the Buckeye State, which is right in that path of the 2024 eclipse totality. This line goes all the way up to Maine and down to Texas and Arkansas, running perpendicular to the direction of 2017. In other words, some of the states that didn't have the opportunity for tourism last time are going to get in the prime spot for that eclipse tourism, including Ohio and Northwest Ohio right here at home. Time will tell how significant these financial impacts are, but I'm pretty confident that we are going to benefit financially, and this is going to bring some amazing opportunities and financial benefits for our local economy. As the total solar eclipse draws closer, you can trust the WTOL 11 weather team to prepare you for the impacts that it'll have on our economy.
There's multiple reasons that we keep our eyes to the sky. Maybe that's the weather, or maybe that's an element or feature that's outside of this world. And, well, you've probably heard of some of those things. One could be an eclipse, but yet there's a couple types of eclipse that we could be, well, keeping our eyes on at night or even during the day, because we have a lunar eclipse and a solar eclipse, and we're going to be breaking down the difference between the two. So first off, a lunar eclipse. So this is where the Earth is casting its shadow onto the moon. And then, of course, then that shadow is going to dim the lighting that makes it to the moon. It's just like you and I, when we're outside on the sidewalk on a sunny day and that sun is shining down, well, then it's going to leave a shadow. Our planets, that happens throughout the solar system, causing then that eclipse. So this is what it looks like if we were flying out and about amongst the stars. And of course, you have the moon, it's orbiting Earth, and you're actually going to find during a lunar eclipse that the Earth kind of gets in the way. So that means that the light towards the moon, not going to quite make it. So you have all those light rays that are coming out from the sun, leaving a nice reflection here on the Earth. But then that light, well, it just can't make it, casting that shadow onto the moon, causing then that lunar eclipse. And at times, though, it might appear to have a little bit of a reddish hue. Now, on the other hand, the other one is a solar eclipse, and this is where the moon is now casting the shadow onto the Earth. And actually, the moon, for us here on Earth, can block or even give us a partial view of the sun. And at times, if it's blocked, then it's completely dark. So this is how it works. You still have the sun and we have the Earth, but in the middle you have the moon that spins around, and it kind of once again gets in the way, just like the Earth did during a lunar eclipse. But this solar eclipse, you can see we have the light coming from the sun, the moon then kind of getting into the way, and once again we have that shadow that's casted. Now, a solar eclipse happens quite a bit faster than a lunar eclipse. It takes just minutes for that eclipse to happen because of the movement of the Earth, the moon, and the sun. But because it goes fast, folks on the globe, they're able to actually see it and quite a few of them. It can cover about a third of the globe at times as far as its path length. Now, of course, we don't have eclipses all that often simply because of the tilt of the Earth. Now, what we're also going to be noticing from our standpoint is what does it look like here at home from Earth? Well, if you're looking at that lunar eclipse, I mentioned that it has that red color to it. And that's because that light, those wavelengths, they're a lot longer. So as they're trying to make it to the moon, of course, the Earth blocking it, those longer wavelengths to our eyes appear at about that red color. So that's why the moon sometimes can have a little bit of that reddish tone. Then in a solar eclipse, what it'll look like to us here on Earth is you have the sun, but then you have the moon. That's going to be moving in, and it's then going to be blocking the sun itself. So at times during totality or that complete darkness, you can take those safety glasses off, but you are going to need them as that moon is moving through. Another difference between the two is that your lunar eclipse, that has to happen when we're in full moon phase, but your solar eclipse, your moon would have to be in the new moon phase. Now that's just a quick difference between a solar and lunar eclipse. Of course, that we do have that total solar eclipse. That's going to be happening, and you can of course enjoy it right here at home. That will be though on March 8th, 2024. Of course, though, if you want more information on the total solar eclipse, make sure you head to WTOL.com. Reporting in studio, meteorologist Diane Phillips.
Welcome to Solar Eclipse Climatology. Over the next couple of minutes, I'll be breaking down our climatology in the early months of April, and exactly on April 8th, which is a year from now, will be our total solar eclipse. So typically we see our cloudiest months in January, February. That's due to our many snowy showers and snow chances that we see likely in January and February. But what about April? Typically we see 60% to 70% of average cloud cover in the month of April. So that'll definitely be something to watch out for as we go within a year from now for that total solar eclipse. Let's look at rainfall on April 8th. We've actually seen measurable rainfall the past 3 years on April 8th of at least last year and the year before that. Now, as far as the rainfall for us, at least in the first week of April, we've seen 3.5 inches in 1957. And even in 2010, we saw just under 2.5 inches. And of course, you can't rule out snowfall. We usually typically average around 1.3 inches of snowfall in the month of April. Some of you may remember this, April 8th, 2016, where we saw just over 3.5 inches of snowfall on April 8th, but even 4 inches on April 9th, making it the third most snowfall in the month of April. You can find all these details and the full story on WTOL.com and YouTube as we get closer to that total solar eclipse. I'm meteorologist Matt Willoughby reporting in studio.
A total eclipse is a rare event. We already know that. Often you can go a long time, even hundreds of years, between the moon's shadow passing in any one location. So it's a big coincidence that here in the United States, for the second time in just 7 years, we're going to be crossed by a total solar eclipse. Now, back in 2017, the eclipse entered the west coast of the U.S. and exited down in South Carolina. That's that lighter shade of gray that you see right there. This time around, the eclipse comes on shore in Mexico, crosses the Del Rio in Texas, and makes a track through our area and all the way off the coast there by Newfoundland. Overlaying these two paths gives a few lucky in the heartland, well, they get to boast that they were in the path of 2 total eclipses in less than a decade. A very rare achievement. But this eclipse will be different than the big one back in 2017 in one big way, and that is the duration. The 2017 version featured a maximum eclipse time of about 2 minutes and 30 seconds. This time around down in Mexico and parts of Texas, you could experience the eclipse for a whopping 4.5 minutes. Incredible when you really think about it. And that moon that's going to come right in front of the Earth and blocking out that solar radiation is going to be something that certainly we have never experienced here in Northwest Ohio and southeastern Michigan in our lifetimes. In fact, when we're looking at this, let's talk about the history. And I actually want to bring this up so you can see it full screen on your screen here. Northwest Ohio hasn't seen a total solar eclipse since 1806. And while several annular and partial eclipses have passed through the area in the last 200 years that were well documented, a big one was in June 16th, 1806. That was our last total solar eclipse right here, and it plays an important role in Ohio history. Tecumseh's brother used the event to prove his abilities to alter sunlight and control the moon as a prophet. And this greatly increased his reputation among his followers and certainly played a big role in that. Now, if you think about it, 1806, obviously a long time ago. If you miss out on this event, the next chance for you to see a total solar eclipse in our backyard, well, you may have to travel if you ever want to see one, because it's going to be a long time. You'll have to wait until 2099 for the next total eclipse to impact us here in Northwest Ohio and southeastern Michigan. Check out more of our eclipse content here. We're going to keep you updated at WTOL.com. We are very excited for this big event that, again, obviously doesn't come around very often. Reporting, I'm meteorologist Ryan Weekman.